Okay, so here's who we're talking about today. We're talking about Julio Bolbochan, and Bolbochan was a grandmaster who was born in Argentina, but spent also a lot of time in Venezuela. But you can see that he was a grandmaster, he achieved that title in 1977, and he was one of the strongest players from South America. But anyway, so I can't wait to show you the games. I'm actually going to show you this game that they have on Wikipedia, which is against Grandmaster Larry Evans from the 1952 Chess Olympiad, and it is a star game. I mean, in terms of how to punish even a grandmaster, how to punish them when they do not adhere to opening principles and the things that we know to be true, kind of like castling your king and controlling the center and developing quickly, you get punished. So this is a really great game. I'm very excited to show you, and it really emphasizes the things that we know to be true about the opening phase of the game: central control, king safety, and development. Getting your pieces out. So we have in this situation a Queen's Gambit. So, standard opening. Evans played the Queen's Gambit accepted. There's nothing wrong with the Queen's Gambit accepted. It's just another way to play. Absolutely nothing wrong with this opening. Knight to f3, a kind of modest approach. A lot of players prefer a big center these days, but knight f3 is still kind of the lazy man's option against the Queen's Gambit accepted. So, pawn to a6, one of many moves, and pawn to e3. So white does not want huge trouble. He simply wants to get the pawn back. This is all a standard Queen's Gambit accepted theory. Okay, Bolbochan gets the pawn back. You might notice that this bishop is temporarily blocked. So what black is going to do is try to attack the center and get the light squared bishop out, usually to this diagonal, and white will either play the advanced pawn to e4. Maybe if black captures, white will capture back and take on the isolated pawn position to get the bishop here out. Sometimes they play conservatively and they go like this. So there are a lot of different development schemes for white, but here Bolbochan chose the queen e2 variation. Knight to c6. And I think people already kind of consider knight to c6 an inaccuracy. Most people play immediately the move pawn to b5 here. But okay, knight to c6. And the reason for that is you can face a lot of heat down the open files, and sometimes it's better for your knight to go to d7. And knight to c3, pawn to b5, bishop back to b3, and everyone in my chat right now would go here. Everyone would. You're just way too tempted by the freaking tempo, and then I would yell at you like you would never been yelled at before. You do gain a tempo by playing the move pawn to c4, but the thing is that you're actually allowing the bishop to reroute to a better diagonal, and because black has no play on the center pawns anymore, white has huge domination in the center of the board. So most players would not do that. Most players would play bishop to b7 and prepare the queen side. I think fundamentally he played kind of a wrong move here. He played the move pawn takes pawn. And what pawn takes pawn enables white to do, Bolbochan to do, is it enables him to accelerate development while the king is still in the middle. So Bolbochan took, and of course, if white had it his way, what would white play on the next turn? Mainly because white's king is on g1 and black's king is in the center. Yeah, exactly, Chewy. You're supposed to slam the pawns down the center and trade off pawns and open up the center of the board. So here, Evans really played, in my opinion, a sin. Now, different chess players and even chess players, stronger than me kind of have a different approach on these types of things. It's a stylistic thing, but I don't grab pawns in the opening. It's hard to go fishing for pawns in the opening because you're going to get you're going to get the business if you do that. If you go pawn hunting when you haven't yet developed your forces, then you're really practically putting yourself in a very tough situation. Now there are players who are pawn munchers, and pretty much they'll lose like 1,000 tempi to grab a pawn, kind of like Korchnoi, even to their detriment, and they'll kind of like, okay, I am interested in grabbing this pawn, and I know you're going to bring the heat, but I'm going to grab it anyway, and if I survive, the pressure's kind of on you. So here, Evans played knight takes d4, which if you're taking lessons from me, and you're not, but let's say you were, you would never play that move, because I would shame you in the public square. It's king safety first, right? So that versus that, and then it's development of pieces, the amount of pieces that you have in the game versus the amount of pieces that your opponent has in the game. So that's super, super, super important. And so here, Bolbochan trades, and of course, Evans captures back. It's kind of the point. And now he plays the beautiful move, knight to d5, which, of course, I like a lot, because knight to d5 is not only just a tactical move, but it comes with other threats, such as knight to c7. We're utilizing the pin here on the e-file. We have bishop to e3 coming, or rook to d1, and all of white's pieces are springing into the game before black can get developed. And that's such an important thing to do. Now, of course, there was nothing wrong with rook to d1 or a4. All of those moves would have distracted black from being able to conclude development, but I like the move knight to d5. All right. Evans took the knight on d5. Now, the point of this move is that not to capture back immediately, because if you do that, black can capture with the queen, and black is up a piece for nothing. White is out of lollipops. White has traded off all of the pieces. So the idea was, after knight to d5, to play the in-between move, rook to d1. And rook to d1 skewers the queen and the knight, and then you can take this knight. For example, if the queen moved away, you could take this knight and continue the game. I mean, here you would be attacking the rook. Your next move is bishop to e3, attacking the queen, and you have total, complete development. Black is not ready to roll here. So Evans played an in-between move of his own, knight to c3, and of course, Bolbochan took that, because it's like, all right, I mean, you're forking my queen and my rook, so I definitely have to take that. And then Evans retreated. Okay? So, he didn't want. Now, I really like this move. And oftentimes, so this is kind of something I learned over time, and it's kind of like a mental trick as you're playing a chess game. So when you're attacking, you're kind of thinking it's like all about you, and it kind of is, but that's kind of how you think about it, right? So you're like, what am I going to do, right? What am I going to do to them? But oftentimes, the best attacking players first ask themselves, what are they going to do to get out of this bad position? But it's like, okay, how does black want to get out of this situation? Okay, so let's ask ourselves. Right, so Nikki Christopher says, like, white wants to keep the king in the middle, which kind of means black doesn't want to keep the king in the middle. So let's say if I was playing the black pieces, I would probably play bishop to e7 and then castle. That's probably what I would do, because I want to develop. I should keep a bishop near the king side so I don't get completely whacked over there if I castle. All right, so the bishop should move somewhere, probably to e7, kind of a conservative move, and then castle to the king side, right? All right, so sometimes by knowing what the other side wants to do, we can come up with our attacking idea. He played, which is a move I like very much, he played queen e5. I love this centralization of the queen. I like that it stops this bishop from moving anywhere, because queen takes g7, and if you try to play the move f6, this just prevents castling for sure. Because if you want to keep your castling rights, you got to play g6. But then white plays the move queen to f3, attacking the rook and attacking this pawn. So white is about to capture the pawn back. Black is definitely not castling once the queen lands on f6. And black's own king is just caught in the crossfire once this opens up. I mean, this is just total garbage. So queen e5 is just a beautiful move. How do you get that queen out of there? You know, like, I mean, who cares if you play bishop c5, right? Going after the f pawn, whatever. I'm definitely taking this. You can have this f pawn, right? I'll just slide over. And what are you going to do about your king here? I mean, obviously you have to guard this, but like, let's say you move the rook, but look, right? I mean, you got to just feel that that's bad, and it is. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. I mean, if something like this happens, there's like bishop h6, bishop to a3, like every move wins, basically. You could blindly play a move, and you would win. Okay? So, queen e5, centralizing the queen and targeting the g-pawn is just very strong. I mean, there's no other way to put that. So, bishop to b7 was played by Evans because Evans needs to get more pieces into the game. And, of course, developing with tempo always has to be a consideration, particularly in this case where bishop to c5 is not possible. So, of course, the queen moved, and, you know, don't throw away the game here. You know, queen and bishop battery aligned there, threatening checkmate on g2. But Bolbochan saw this, and he darn sure wasn't going to play a defensive move. So what did he do? White to play and keep the momentum going. Very good. Bishop to d5. Eat it, sucker. Because bishop to d5 skewers the queen and the bishop. Of course, you're not winning the bishop, but what you are doing is you're neutralizing the threat, and you're doing so with tempo, utilizing chess tactics. You're using the fact that this pawn is in a pin to the king, so you know the pawn can't capture. The queen captures, you happily take the queen. Okay, so the queen went to c8. Bolbochan traded. So again, he dominates the center of the board. This bishop still cannot develop. He can't castle queenside. Not that that would be good anyway, but he can't castle queenside because of this rook. So basically, you know, black's a dead man walking, but still white has to keep the pedal to the metal here. So what would you do now? If you do not open the game, you cannot use your major pieces to their maximum. So Bolbochan played the move pawn to a4. He already had a pawn to bite on. He wants to get his rook into the game, you know, in some way, one way or another. So he said, you know, this is the easiest way to do that. Pawn to a4, create pawn tension, and let's crack this baby open. You know what I mean? Maybe I trade, get my rook down there, trade off your last defender of the 8th rank, and then look at that piece of garbage over there on h8, right? So rook c8, Evans is like, I'm getting out of there. Pawn takes, queen takes, and now for the... Now, you know the rule. If you watch my stream, you know, I'm a chess teacher, been a chess teacher for many, many years. I don't really teach that much anymore, but I do here on stream. You have to listen to me, though, because even though I'm not your favorite chess streamer, I'm still better than most people, right? So you should listen to my advice, okay? So when you're attacking, okay, when you're the aggressor, I don't give a if you're up 1,000 pieces, okay? You do not trade, you attack, okay? The only time you trade is when you're on the defensive. So yes, exactly. Do not trade queens. Do not trade queens. So queen to d4 was played by Bolbochan, and this was a great move. Queen to d4 avoids the queen trade. There's some nasty little threats, like rook takes a6 because the queen is overloaded, right? My queen bishop battery, my queen and rook battery wants to come down here. So queen is overloaded. We still have the pressure against the g pawn. So yeah. So pawn e5 was played by Evans. And queen to g4, again, playing with tempo. Playing with tempo and, you know, just tightening the screws. Rook to d8. And here, Bolbochan traded because he says, I am trading off one of the key defenders of your back rank, and I'll just bring this guy over here. This rook, that bishop cannot help you. So I'm trading an attacker for a defender. That's fine, but here comes my next rook. And you cannot castle anymore, and these pieces are totally null. I mean, they're nothing. So take that off, bring the other rook over for a check, and I love this move. Okay, first of all, many roads lead to Athens here, so I have to say that, you know. Many roads lead to Athens here, but I really like the one he chose. Big time. Because it sets up a very brutal threat. And you actually can't do much about it. So he played, this was a tightening of the screws move right here. I really like it a lot. And it was the move queen to f5. Bishop c5 is what he wants to play. Bishop to c5, what he wants to play. But after bishop to c5, queen takes c5, rook to d7, and king f6, there's no follow-up per se. I mean, there is, you can try to hunt the king down with your pawns, but what Bolbochan wanted to do is, he wanted to play bishop to c5 with the idea of rook to d7, but he just wanted to set up a mating net first. So this beautiful quiet move, queen to f5, sets this up, bishop to c5 and rook to d7, and it's just over. In fact, Grandmaster Larry Evans resigned here because he's just getting brutalized. I mean, there's nothing he can do about it. Hi, I'm Peter Giannatos, founder of the Charlotte Chess Center. If you enjoyed these videos, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to watch these videos live, be sure to follow us on Twitch.